So, Thursday, January 6th, Bible Lesson 3. It's got really two parts. This is where we're talking about Jesus' authority, and then another part where we're talking about paying taxes. All right? And they're both in this section here. You might want to just put a line down here and illustrate one side and another side, and then notes underneath. But the first part is Matthew 21, verses 23 to 32, the authority of Jesus question. If I'm teaching at Leonard Christian here, some parent might come in and say, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. By whose authority do you speak, Mr. Terpstra? And I would say, well, I learned it from some guy on the street. And people would go, what's going on? I don't think that guy's qualified. But I also could say, well, no, actually, I went to Leonard Christian K through 12. I went to Northwestern College in Iowa, got my teaching degree, did some student teaching in the inner city of Chicago. I had my first job was out in Minneapolis where I taught fourth grade. Then I was for 6 years, and I taught here at LC back in '02 is when I started, and I've been doing it since. And then you say, oh, okay. So who did you learn under? Well, there's professor this person, professor that person, this person helped me out. And you say, okay, yeah, I understand what they stand for, so I kind of have an idea of what you might stand for, Mr. T. Or that professor was reputable, and since I can respect them, I can kind of respect you. Well, when Jesus and any other rabbi is speaking, they would have to answer by whose authority are they speaking, meaning which rabbi did they learn under? And Jesus is questioned on this, and we'll talk about it here. So 21 verse 23, Jesus entered the temple courts, and while he was teaching, the chief priests and the elders of the people came to him. By what authority are you doing these things? They asked. And who gave you this authority? Now remember, the whole theme is that Jesus is being bold, okay? And it isn't just nicey Jesus where, hey, little children come to me and he's got little birds on his shoulder, tweeting and stuff. No, Jesus this week, this Passover week, is bang in your face about stuff. And they're asking, by whose authority do you speak? Expecting he'd say, well, Rabbi Gamaliel or Rabbi Jimmy or whatever. Jesus replied, I will ask you one question. If you answer me, I will tell you by what authority I am doing these things. So in good rabbinical tradition, he answers a question with a question. And he says, John's baptism, where did it come from? Was it from heaven or of human origin? Now, they were stuck. Because if they would say, well, John got his baptism from a guy, that would be a lie. Because John's baptism came through God. He was inspired to do so. So if they say, well, it came from a guy, everybody would know that those people were lying. These Pharisees would be lying. If the Pharisees, said John got his baptism from the Lord, then all the people would say, well, why didn't you believe him? Because they couldn't stand John. John was putting them in their place all the time. So they had no way to answer that without getting trapped. So Jesus, whose authority comes from heaven, but if he were to say that, probably would have gotten in trouble with them. Did Jesus learn underneath a rabbi? Probably a couple different ones. But he's so far above that he could say, I get my authority from God. But instead, he puts the ball in their court and says, if you answer this question, I'll tell you. If you don't, I won't. So they discussed it among themselves, and when rabbis do that, or Pharisees do that, they all kind of get in a big sort of huddle. Hey, guys, what should we say? What should we say? And they come back after their little huddle, and they say, if we say from heaven, or no, this is in their huddle, if we say from heaven, he will ask, then why didn't you believe him? But if we say of human origin, we are afraid of the people, for they all hold that John was a prophet. So they get out of their huddle and they say to Jesus, we don't know. Then Jesus says, then neither will I tell you by what authority I am doing these things. Can you imagine these Pharisees just go, just super mad at him? Like, well, if you can't tell me, I'm not going to tell. So that's the first part of the question of authority. The second part of the lesson talks about paying taxes, okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to break this off and do a second video so it doesn't get too long for the paying of taxes.